Alrighty, so we're in day 3 of the interview series for CIE TEFL and CIE Teach Abroad alumni. So today we're welcoming Adam as our star today.
Hello.
I'll have him introduce himself in a little bit here, but as always, I'll introduce myself and then we'll have Gabby introduce herself as well as CIE staff. So I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for CIE TEFL. I also am an alumni of the CIE Teach Abroad program in Madrid, which we're going to be talking about today. And it's a pleasure to get to share these interviews with you all. So Gabby, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Alrighty, hey, I'm Gabby. I am the Teach Abroad and TEFL program assistant. I am also an alumni of the Madrid program. And yeah, super excited to listen to Adam's story. So let's get going.
Yeah, great. Adam, take it away. Introduce yourself.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Santana. I am an alumni of the CIE Madrid program back in 2020, and I did do the program for 2 years. And I'm excited to share with you my insight, my journey since then, and answer any questions maybe that you might have today.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I think I always like to start the conversation off by getting a snapshot of where you were, like mentally, emotionally, physically, before you decided to teach in Spain and how you came to the conclusion to do the program in Madrid.
Yeah. So that's actually such a great question. And I think my answer is going to be maybe a little bit more unique than the current situation just because of the time period. So I went to visit my friend. I did a extra semester because I transferred. Long story short, I had to do an extra semester at school to finish my undergraduate degree. And I went to visit my friend who was doing the program already. And she was telling me about all the perks and how great of an experience it was. And I said, you know what, I'm going to apply just because once I leave school, the job search can be tough. And I wanted to really make sure I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. So I applied at first, kind of, I was hoping it was just going to be an option for me to do something out of university. Then COVID hits, and everyone's getting furloughed, people are losing their jobs. And it wasn't really the hottest time to be entering the job market. And I had prior already applied to the CIU program. And when I saw that I was accepted, I said, wow, this is still a great opportunity for me. And then it was up in the air if we were going to be going or not, just because of visas and the whole COVID situation. But when they did give us the green light to go, I was 100% in. And I said, this is going to be my first, work experience out of college. So let me really take advantage. And it was the best decision that I made probably in my life this far.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, really crazy time because you went fall 2020, right?
Yeah, fall 2020.
And so yeah, folks were just kind of getting back. I mean, lockdown in Spain was pretty intense,
Yeah,
starting in March 2020. So that's really great that you were able to go and get that experience and
yeah,
indulge in life in Spain
definitely.
during that time. Great. Well, so tell us a little bit more about like that time leading up. It sounds like you were a recent graduate, so it was right after your bachelor's degree.
Yep.
Were you like working part-time during the summer, or were you just kind of preparing for the program, and kind of what advice do you have in that preparation period if you're a recent grad
Yeah,
going to Spain?
definitely. And of course, so my undergrad, I studied communications and public relations with a minor in entrepreneurship. So per se, I didn't have any direct teaching experience. But you realize that when you go into teaching, you don't always need this 100% education background to be able to apply your skills in the classroom. So I was a coach for many years, and that summer leading up to going to Spain, I was coaching volleyball. So kids from ages 6 years old through 18. Um, and those skills you're really able to bring into the classroom, just like breaking down game plans, routines, monitoring the athletes and seeing how their skills are doing and where you can tweak and improve them, which is the same thing in the classroom with like learning abilities and the language learning. You can see kind of hey, the students are at this level and I want to bring them to X level. Like, what are tools and tricks that I can implement to really help them get to that next level, which is what I did with my athletes essentially. So leading up to going to Spain, again, I was uh, doing like camps in the summer. And I think that answers your question. I'm not sure. I think I went
Yeah.
on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, I think the
Yeah.
other part of the question is just like, what is your big piece of advice for folks that are preparing?
Yeah.
Like, especially being a recent grad and like speaking to that experience of like
Okay,
to get into the mindset
for
of
sure.
like I'm moving across the world to go teach in another country.
Yeah. So I think my answer is twofold. So, um, I was nervous to get into the classroom, which is so normal, right?
Yeah.
And I definitely over prepared. Like I had a bunch of like lessons that I wanted to kind of implement immediately when I got there. I had like a bunch of resources saved. I was already making like PowerPoints for Thanksgiving and Christmas time and holidays and vocab. And then when I got there, I realized that the teachers in Spain, and I think you guys can like vouch for me on this, they're so prepared. A lot of them are really well prepared
Mhm.
to the point where sometimes you'll get into the classroom and they already have exactly what they want you to do for them, like A through Z. So again, I'm glad that I over prepared just because it's like in my nature to do so. But then when I got there, it was kind of a breath of fresh air when a lot of the teachers were like, hey, actually I have a packet exactly for you. This is what we're going to do day one, this is what we're going to do day two. Here are like the lessons, and they would give me the liberty to kind of add or take depending on where I saw the level of the students at. But I never felt in any of my days at school that I was like underprepared or that I couldn't ask for help in an area where maybe I wasn't understanding like what they wanted me to do. Um, and then I would say my second part to this answer would be, or to the question, I'm sorry, kind of preparing to go overseas. It's scary, right? It's not as simple like, yeah, let me just go ship myself across the ocean and everything's gonna be fine and dandy. I think there is a period where you're kind of like you have these like love goggles on. So everything seems so perfect, so amazing, which the program and your process will be. But again, there's a lot of like paperwork behind the scenes and getting an apartment and your banking that can sometimes feel overwhelming, and that's completely normal. It's just
Mhm.
about kind of pushing through that process and showing up every day and doing what you can to kind of uh, go forward in those processes that sometimes feel like they take forever. That at the end of the day, you're going to find housing, you're going to have a bank account. Yeah, you're gonna like your roommates, you're gonna figure out your transportation to and from school. It just all seems like so much at once, but then I think my best advice is to just show up every day, maybe meditate for 5 minutes in the morning and set yourself up for the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, patience is a huge
Yeah,
one,
definitely.
especially in Spain. I love Spain, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
But patience is really, really important because things don't
definitely.
always move as fast as we're used to in the States, that's for sure.
Yeah,
So that's really great advice. Well, and I guess moving into that arrival, how was that? I mean, that must have
yeah.
been pretty chaotic in 2020, with
Okay.
things still being relatively shut down, I'm imagining. So walk
Yeah.
us through like how those first couple of weeks were when you arrived in Spain.
Definitely. So really interesting. When I first arrived to Spain, again, we have to think back to 2020. There was a lot of COVID restrictions at that time. So we were only able to enter the country because we had a student visa. There were no tourist visas. So that first year, again, we didn't have like friends and family coming to visit because it wasn't allowed. Towards the end of the year, it did free up, so family and friends were able to come. But again, arriving there, everyone had masks on. There was something called the toque de queda. So basically, like a curfew. You had to be inside by 12 a.m. or like 11:59 p.m. that day, and you weren't allowed in the streets until I think again maybe 5 or 6 in the morning, like to commute to work, which was so interesting because again here in the U.S. there was like laws and rules being implemented, and like just because of U.S. culture, you would see that people didn't listen to them, people didn't follow them. Some areas did, some areas didn't. But when I got to Spain and I saw how orderly it was and how 11:59 everyone was inside their house, you kind of learn like, okay, this is the way things go here. You're not pushing barriers or boundaries like people did in the States. It was really interesting to see. We always had to have our masks on, which I do want to mention. My first year, we had our masks on the whole year. So
Yeah.
again, learning a language, a lot of it you're reading lips and you're learning. Um, how to pronunciate or through watching someone speak. So having a mask on was kind of a new obstacle.
Mhm.
So actually we would show videos in class, especially for the more beginner levels, of like people speaking, a lot of speaking and pronunciation, because they couldn't see us doing it with the masks. So that was really interesting, and I look back on that and it's like almost dystopian.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really funny because a lot of times the entire year, your students would never see your face, or they would catch a glimpse of it if you were to like sneeze or if you were to like cough and you had to pull your mask down, or maybe taking a sip of water. And it was like a really big, like revealed moment. And the whole class is like, oh, I saw your face. And you're like, oh, wow, I show up every day expecting you to recognize me. And you're acting like
Yeah.
it's been 6 months in and you're acting like it's the first time we've met.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting experience. And then feel free, Rachel, to cut me off at any time if you want to proceed with the next questions.
No.
But then it was really interesting because in my second year, when we were able to finally remove the masks, I would see a lot of my students and I didn't recognize them. And they're like, "You don't remember me from last year?" And I would say, "I do. It's just you look so different with, I'm seeing you smile now and I'm seeing your teeth, and it's just a very different experience." So
Must have been really hard to learn your students' names. I know I struggled with that because I saw like 350 students a week with
yeah,
all the different classes I was assigned to. And I had a joke with my students because they never learned my name. They always just call me teacher, right? And it's very
yeah,
common in Spain. And so they were getting frustrated with me like halfway through the year. I didn't know their names because I saw so many of them.
yeah,
And people in Spain usually have very similar names. It's like a lot of Maria,
yes,
a lot of Paulas, a lot of
yes.
Pablos.
Carlos,
Um,
Pablo, Juan. Yes.
I always mentioned to them, I was like, listen, if you don't know my name, I'm just gonna call you Paula. That's just what's
Yeah, yeah.
that was the running joke. But I'm sure it was really hard to learn their names if you don't even get to see their faces too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, connecting with students is hard. But I think another interesting thing about your experience, and I meant to ask this to Hannah yesterday because she also did 2 years in Spain.
Mm.
And as someone who also has done 2 years in Spain, I'm always curious to know, like, you arrive in Spain, you start your teaching position in October, right? And then typically you get asked if you want to renew for a second year, like
Yes.
3, 4 months in. Like this is like
Yeah.
January, February of the year of the
Yep.
next year, right? So
Yes.
when that comes around, like what are you thinking? Like you're in like the heat of COVID in Spain, you get asked to renew. What was the motivation behind wanting to stay?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very telling, and I don't know the rate. Maybe as marketing manager, you might know the rate at which people do renew.
Mhm.
But I knew immediately that I was not going to be ready to leave after the 1 year mark. I think after literally even 1 week in the classroom, I was saying, "Where's the paperwork? I want to sign. I want to be here next year." So for me, it was kind of a no brainer,
Hmm.
and a lot of my friends too. And it's just such a unique experience. And me coming fresh out of college and not really knowing what I wanted to do, and then having such a great first impression of the program and teaching, which again, teaching was never something I thought I was going to love or want to do. Um, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about it in later on, but it's something I also want to do in the future at the university level. Um, but again, so for me, it was kind of a no-brainer, and I did have some friends that were kind of on the fence about it, just because either they left a job to come do this program, or um, they just weren't sure if they were going to love it as much as I was already loving it. And at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure like 99% of the friends I made within the CIE group did renew to come back a second year.
Yeah, a lot of folks end up renewing for a second year for sure from our program. I know that we have communication about that halfway through the year when folks start getting that messaging about renewing. So yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision to make. I think for me, a lot of folks, when I'm talking to them in like the pre-departure
Mhm.
process, like before they've even applied even, they get a little concerned about like, oh wow, like 9 to 10 months in Spain sounds like a long time. But I
Yeah.
think it is true. Like, you get to that like 4 months in, you're like, what? Like, I'm going to be going home
Yeah.
potentially. Like, that's crazy
Mhm.
that this experience is flying by. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
second year is a great way to be able to extend that. And I think across the board, folks are always concerned about the possibility of being able to extend. And really,
Yeah.
extension is a very common thing
Yeah.
for all of our programs, really, not just Teach in Spain, but
And
um,
you're right, Rachel. Whenever you talk about it flying by, I feel like whenever you commit to going for the full year for 10 months, it doesn't even really feel like 10 months. Honestly, the first half of, and maybe Adam, you can attest to this as well, but the
Definitely.
first half of the program is just like getting your feet on the ground, getting to know the people that you want to see every day, getting to know your specific people at this, store, at this shop, at this tapas bar that you go to every day.
Mhm.
Like, it's really getting adjusted to it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, are you going a second year? And it's like, well, I just moved here. What do you mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
At least that's kind of how I feel like I felt and a lot of people in my circle felt. It was a no-brainer for other people. I unfortunately didn't stay another year because I already had plans to go somewhere else, but
yeah,
pretty much everybody else in my circle that I knew, it was like no-brainer. I just moved here. Yes, of course I'm staying.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like schedules don't even really get finalized until like November, and then Spain has a big break at the beginning of
yeah,
December, and then of course the holiday season. So it's like, yeah, you
yeah.
Exactly.
get back in January, you're like, okay, I like just started this, guys. What's going on? Um,
And kind of
so
going off of what you were saying, again, like you do finally when your feet do get settled, you're already so many months in and you're like, wow, you start enjoying your routine and you start having, yeah, your local places to go hang out and you have your friend group. And then they're like, okay, in 3 months you're leaving. And you're like, wait, no, I'm not. Like, wait, I just got settled. So definitely, I agree with you 100% on that.
yeah. Well, that leads me to my next question of like getting your feet on the ground. Because I think if you guys haven't checked it out yet, for people that are watching this on YouTube later or live right now, Adam actually did a little like promotional stunt with CIE back when he was teaching. And he talked a lot about, I mean, you were doing volleyball at the time.
Yes.
And so I think you have a lot to share about, what community building looks like in
Yes.
that 2-year process. So give us a look into what that was like for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is like one of the topics I'm most passionate about, especially in Spain. The sense of community in Spain, if you look for it, you will find it. Whereas I think growing up, and I'm from the suburbs of New York City, so I do have access to a big city close to me, but I didn't grow up directly in the city. So finding community, it's like it's not as easy as it was in an area where it's so condensed and there's just so much going on at all times. So, again, it's something I'm really passionate about. For me in Spain, I was able to join a volleyball team, an LGBTQ plus volleyball team that really it was in a league where we played against teams just from different regions of Spain, but ours was the gay or queer team, and that was a really fun experience for me, and it opened so many doors for me. Um, this is actually a really interesting way that I was recruited for the team. So I'm going to tell the story. So
Yeah.
I had a Tinder profile, and on my Tinder profile, someone saw that I was playing volleyball. They
Mhm.
reached out to me and they said, "Hi, like I see that you play volleyball. You've played at the university level. We're looking for athletes." And I said, "What a great way to find new friends and join something." So I went to the tryout for G Madrid, and yeah, I played twice a week practices, and every weekend we had a game, and that was a really great experience for me because I got to meet locals, I got to meet other expats, people from there was a lot of people from like France, Brazil. And I learned a lot about the culture, and I got to learn more of my Spanish through that because my coach was speaking to me in Spanish. So kind of aside from the teaching side, this was a very like personal building side where I got to practice my Spanish and like building relationships. Um, and it was a really cool experience. We traveled around the region of Madrid, and there was different roles within that, right? So we had like our captain, we had someone who was working on the social media side, we had someone who was organizing events for the organization. And I got to help out in all of that. So it really just made me more of a member of the community because I'm meeting the people who are owners of the restaurants that we're eating at. I'm meeting different people from the community that want to join the program. And it's actually funny because then the next year I became an orientation leader in my second year in Spain. And I was recruiting a lot of volleyball players. So, and it went beyond just volleyball. They had basketball, yoga, swimming, paddle, golf. So I was really recruiting anyone who was looking for a sense of community and team, and they were athletes. And it was a really inclusive organization. So people from all levels. I was even, it wasn't like I was looking for D1 stars out here. I was saying, hey, if you're looking to pick up a new hobby and meet new people, this is a great opportunity to do so. Write me and we can get you involved. And to this date, actually, I know some people. I played back in from 2020 to 2023, and I know alumni of CIE who are still playing for the organization and still live there today. So it was the best experience. I recommend it to everyone, and yeah, I mean, if you look for community in Spain, you'll find it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I get a lot of questions about that. Am I going to be able to make friends? I think, of course, CIE facilitates that to an extent with, just how many people go out in our programs and connecting you guys that way. But yeah, I think I always say it is what you make of it. Like if you want to do that, you're going to find it. Like you're saying,
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of opportunity to do that. And it's like working on your Spanish. I think people are super concerned about that, but it is important to note that just because you're in Spain doesn't mean that your Spanish is going to blow up. Like,
yeah,
you have to do that. You have to be speaking to your coach in Spanish and want to make that improvement.
yeah,
So, that's a really funny story. Download Tinder. I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, get
Is that the
recruited
message?
through the
yeah.
dating app, and then
Yeah.
you'll be golden.
I'm pretty sure there's an option on Tinder for like finding friends too, or
Yeah.
Bumble, one of these dating sites that now
Bumble
you can like
BFF.
go on friend dates. So I know a bunch of my friends did that as well. Where again, it was like we were like putting ourselves out here just being in Spain in the first place. So a few of the friends you could do like group friends where you like look for other friend groups to go out with or to yeah, to go get dinner with, whatever. And I know a lot of people who ended up finding really core friends through these like dating or apps, but you don't have to go on there to date. You can literally go on there to find relationships and friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you gotta start somewhere. So
Yeah.
download the app. Put your like location specifics on there
Yeah.
to meet people and your local community. One, I guess, so was this in your like neighborhood? And we can talk a little bit more about like housing, I guess, too, and like how you went about and found your neighborhood and
Yeah.
stayed in that same neighborhood for the 2 years.
Yeah. So a little bit about I was playing for this club team that was near Palos de la Frontera, which is a metro station that's near Seoul. And then I lived in the neighborhood of Malasaña. And how did I find my housing? So I did wait until I got to Spain, which was recommended by CIE, because a lot of times you guys have to be careful. There are a lot of scammers. Unless you personally know someone who's already there, I always just recommend waiting until you get there to find the housing, excuse me, yourself. And I found it through Idealista. Idealista is a wonderful site where you can go and they have all the listings of all of Madrid, um, all the different neighborhoods, and you can kind of filter out what exactly you're looking for, whether that's a one bedroom, maybe you're looking for a apartment that already comes furnished, maybe you're looking for just a room with other roommates, and essentially I kind of just made a short list of I shortlisted a bunch of apartments that I liked and in the neighborhoods that I wanted to live in, and then I took my time just visiting one by one. And then finally, I came across one that I absolutely fell in love with. I was able to meet the roommates that I was going to be living with. They kind of like sat me down and did an interview with me, like, "Oh, what are you looking for in roommates?" Which was wonderful because sometimes if you just put yourself in a room and then you realize your roommate's really messy, or you realize your roommate have like a crazy schedule that doesn't really align with yours. So it was nice to sit down with them, chit chat with them, see what they were looking for in a roommate, and I actually ended up staying there my 3 years that I was in Spain. Yeah, in Malasaña. And the first 2 years, just for a little bit of context, I was again teaching, and I was in Alcobendas, which was about a 50-minute commute on the metro. So I would walk. I had a metro station in front of my house, Noviciado, and I could literally, when it was cold, I could walk into that metro station and walk to another one in Plaza España, which was the Línea 10, the 10 line, and I would take that directly to school. I would sit on that
Okay.
for 45, 50 minutes. Yeah, it was wonderful. Um, so my commute to school was really easy. I was also able to take the bus. So sometimes I would go up, take the metro to Plaza de Castilla, and then from there I would take a bus. Just depending on whichever was quicker that morning, I would tend to opt for.
Mhm.
Um, And yeah.
Yeah, Alcobendas, for folks that are not familiar with Madrid, is an outer ring, like suburb, if you will.
Yeah,
It's really not in the center. And so I think that this is a good demonstration of how easy it is to navigate.
definitely.
Even, I mean, because Malasaña is the center of Madrid.
Mhm.
And it's pretty accessible to get. I mean, there's multiple ways that you can get out to the outer rings of Madrid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was placed in Arroyo Molinos, which I think a lot of people who've been to Madrid don't know where that
And
is.
where is that?
It's past like Móstoles, basically. Um,
Okay.
so it was like an hour and a half on the bus, but it was
Okay.
one bus, and I
Yeah.
dropped me off from Principe Pio, which is a main transportation hub
Yeah.
in like the southern southwestern part of the city. Dropped me right off at the school, so not a big deal at all. Sometimes I'd nap, sometimes I listen to podcasts, sometimes prep
Yeah.
for school. So yeah, it's good to know that commutes are easy.
Yeah.
Um
Definitely.
for sure. Well, and great. So let's talk a little bit, like before we move on to kind of what you've been up to since teaching. How was the actual like teaching role? Like, was there a lot of responsibility? Like, and maybe like some highlights of your teaching role while
Yeah.
you're there for 2 years?
Definitely. So, a little bit about the teaching role. So, again, I was there 4 days. You're there 4 days a week teaching, I think, 16 hours. Um, and I was at a school called IES Virgen de la Paz, which was in Alcobendas. It is a vocational school. So, the structure of it is a little bit different than your typical like high school. So at this instituto, they would send kids. I had kids that were between the ages of 14, and then I had students that were like in their 60s, 50s, and 40s.
Oh,
Now, why was that? So because it's a vocational school, you were actually able to come back to the school to learn a trade, which was amazing. And I actually loved all my older alumni. Sometimes I was the youngest in the classroom. So, and it was super interesting. They're like, "How did he? What he's teaching us today?" I'm like, "Yes."
it's me.
So, and they loved me. I loved them. We had a really great relationship, and it was across different industries. So there was people who were studying to become mechanics. There's people studying to get like professional studies in finance, in business administration. We even had an area for people who were studying to go on to become preschool and kindergarten teachers. So in education, I'm trying to think. We had people studying like econ, computer science,
Mhm.
and it was what was really cool about my school too was the school actually placed students in internships. So in the grado superior, they would be learning with us, and then like the second half of the year, they would go be placed in internships at these big corporations across Madrid. So my school was a little bit different than some of my counterparts, and being in such a diverse like group of students in across different sectors was really cool because teaching English wasn't ever like mundane and boring. Every section was so different. So for the people that were learning to become teachers, we were teaching them um, child psych and like how to be in the classroom with kids, but then the mechanics, we were literally teaching them how to say car parts and like how to work in a garage, an auto body shop. So it was every class setting was just so different and kind of entertaining for me.
Yeah,
um, and yeah, a little bit more about the class experience. I think my biggest piece of advice is to always keep it as interactive as possible. No one loves to like you remember. I remember being a uni student, someone in high school, and just like a teacher would get up there and kind of rant, and like by the end of class I would just zone out and like not even know what was going on.
yeah,
So and then maybe you guys can like attest to that too. The second they ask you to be involved, like you're immediately more awake, you're immediately more attentive. um, so we would play a lot of games, a lot of vocab games. The kids loved Kahoot. I say kids, and they were literally adults sometimes, so it's weird for me, but they were my kids. Um, so we would play Kahoot. We would do like real life scenarios and interactions where they would come up and present kind of or do it in front of the class. And something I wanted to mention, at least for me, was positive feedback that I got was Adam. Like my students were like, Adam, you're always so happy. You're always smiling. You're always so like energetic. And like for me, coming to school was energizing, and there was something about entering the classroom where like you kind of turn on, and I'm like, this is my stage, this is a performance. Like I need to bring the energy for them, because I remember being in high school and being half asleep in half my classes because I was either tired, staying up late, sports the night before, XYZ. But if the teacher brings the energy, it kind of emits and transmits into the students, and they're excited to be there and break out of their shell. So if you show up to that classroom, and I don't want to scare anyone who's a little bit more introverted or shy, but I do urge you to try and kind of put yourself out there, be a little bit more whimsical and flamboyant up there, because the students will appreciate it, and it helps them break out of their shell a little bit too. Um,
And I feel, Adam, like with you being placed at a vocational school, when I was living in Madrid, my roommate was at a vocational school. And so,
okay.
like you mentioned, there are a lot of differences between being placed, and I was at an elementary school too. And
Yeah.
so she was teaching things like you brought up, like mechanic classes. And she's like, I don't know anything about this. But it was like, let me look it up. And then, like
Yeah.
you mentioned, let me bring some energy, let me bring some games. As long as like I have this little book or I have this page to look off of car parts, if
Yes.
I insert it into a fun way for them, it's like that's all it is,
Absolutely.
So I love that you did that, and I love that
Yeah.
you turned on for that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the biggest kept secret about, and it's not like we're trying to keep it a secret, to be honest,
Yeah.
is the variety of the teaching position in Spain. I think
Totally.
everyone that you talk to is going to have such a different experience. And I think very rarely people are put in to like specifically English classes. Like that
Yeah.
was pretty rare if anyone had only English classes. I think it's like a good mix. Like I was in music classes because I had mentioned that I play the cello, and they were like, okay,
Oh,
well, you're going to be in music class. And I was like, listen,
that's
I'm
awesome.
I wasn't a music major, and so I was like teaching music theory to like,
Yeah.
sophomores in high school. And they're like, you know this. I'm like, no, I don't. Like, no, I don't, promise.
Yeah.
Or
And you
like
just put your best foot
chemistry.
forward. Yeah.
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 So they just like you're saying, they just want you to bring the enthusiasm and to be there. And it definitely
Definitely.
pays off, especially with high school students. I mean,
Yeah.
elementary kids, of course, as well. But high school students, I mean, I had a girl once, like in my first couple of weeks, we were doing like some conversation classes, and I was like, okay, well, like, what's your aspirations in life? And she was like, I have none. And I was like, oh, no, like we
Oh
gotta get this
man.
girl some hopes and dreams over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and then of course, I got her to open up a little bit about like, what
Yeah.
exactly she's passionate about. So yeah, bringing the energy is a really good piece of advice for sure.
Definitely.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah,
and I think
anything else to add?
Yeah, I think kind of just like ease the minds who are maybe a little bit nervous about going into the classroom and not knowing what to do. I kind of want to just reemphasize that a lot of these teachers will have things prepared for you, or they will tell you exactly what they want you to prepare. And you have time at school to work on stuff. So either between classes, so when you get your schedule, maybe you have 3 or 4 classes that day. Maybe you only have 2 that day. You can always like allot time to just sit there. There's like normally an office space for you, a computer room, an empty classroom that you can go and just prepare with the lessons. I think just maintaining really open communication with your teachers will help you feel prepared.
Mhm.
It's very I don't want to say informal, but you can be more personal with like the professionals in Spain. Like they'll send you their personal number, and you can just text them like, "Hey, the lesson plan for tomorrow. Like, what are we doing? X, Y, Z," and they'll help you. At least for me, like I remember my one teacher, Beatriz. She was amazing. Literally one of the best English teachers I think I've come across in the world. Bless her. She like had these textbooks basically for me that she made herself, and she just had me go in and kind of review it beforehand, and then I always felt really prepared. And she would tell me like, hey, like I trust you. You can adapt them, you can change them if you want to tweak anything, like feel free to do so. So again, a lot of times I didn't once I did like my preparation for the week, I already knew what I was doing for the rest of the week. I would show up, have that ready, and it was always like it would always fill the time that we needed to be with the students, and it was interactive and fun and engaging. So and then I would just take that and kind of implement it into my other classes. um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I don't know, I had a really great experience with that. And I think again, what's great about CIEE is you're going to be a part of such a big group of incoming teachers. There's group chats. So if you're stuck on a topic or you don't know what to prepare, you can just kind of shoot a message into the group chat and say, "Hey guys, I'm working on this with my students. Can anyone help me with like lesson planning or fun activities that you did?" And you will have multiple people answering you and sending you resources that you can then use in the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. One shameless plug, I did this on Monday and I'm gonna do it again. Because I am the sales and marketing manager for TEFL. If you're at all concerned about the teaching position and you want additional tools, and also professional development to put on your resume post teaching abroad, we do have the 150-hour TEFL course. And I also like to recommend the 60-hour course for people that are going to Spain as a more shortened and abbreviated training. Because I think it's just more tools in your toolbox, right? If you're
Exactly.
worried about it, that is what we offer, particularly for the teaching role. So yeah, if you're concerned about it, 150-hour course or the 60-hour course are the way to go for preparation. But
And
great. Well, I think I want to get into what happens next, Adam. I mean, you're like in your second year. I'm like trying to imagine like your thought process. You're in your second year and you're thinking about like, what's next? So walk us through that.
so leaving the second year or going into second year?
Yeah, so leaving like the teach abroad experience, like you're
Okay.
coming to the end, or I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
when the like when the planning started for you,
definitely.
for what you're going to move on to after teaching.
Yeah. So when I wasn't able to, or when you're not able to renew for the second year within the same like region, because you can renew or do like different, obviously like there's different programs that you can do private, whatnot. I had known that I was kind of ready to kind of move into a different chapter in my life, in my professional life. So I started to look for. I wanted to work in the digital marketing and marketing space. So for me, it was important to do that, and I saw that it wasn't going to be quite possible yet in Spain. So I started looking into master's programs. And in doing so, I started looking at master's programs in the US first, and then I saw the price tag. And then I said, why don't I venture into looking at how much, if it's going to cost me my liver in the US, why rather it cost me my liver in Spain? So
Hmm.
I started looking at programs that were based in Spain, Barcelona, Madrid, Sevilla, and I realized that it was about half the price. And now I already had this affinity for Spain. I was already loving living there. I was already grounded there. I had a sense of community there. I said, you know what? I'm going to apply. I applied to a renowned business school called IE Business School. Um, it's really well known in Madrid. It's a very strong internationally based uni. They're one of the towers in the Cuatro Torres.
Mhm.
So if you do when you do get over to Spain, you'll see one of the towers. I'm a proud alumni, and I got into the program for digital marketing and analytics. And for me, that was kind of just a no brainer. So there was a time period where again I was kind of wondering what my next steps were going to be. I was started thinking about school. I looked at the U.S. and then I realized I could afford to stay in Spain, and I transitioned into that. So in my third year, I remained in my apartment in Malasaña. I commuted to my school. Which was actually in Barrio Salamanca, the
Mhm.
master's program, and I had an incredible experience there. And Rachel, should I continue going on about my after experience? Is that okay?
Yeah, give us the
Okay.
full timeline.
Yeah. So I stayed in that third year. Towards the end of that third year, I was looking for work. I could stay a 6 month extension period as a intern, but I actually got a contract for a fashion conglomerate called Pooch. They're a Catalan company. I think they
Mhm.
saw that I went to IE and they liked that, but they saw I was also an American citizen. So they were opening a headquarters in Miami. They were moving their headquarters essentially from Panama City to Miami. So this was for Las Americas, North, Central, and South America. They needed someone who was both bilingual, and understood kind of the nuances of like the Latino market and coming from a Spanish headquarters.
Mhm.
So I worked under the portfolio of Carolina Herrera, Jean Paul Gaultier, Paco Rabanne, Penhaligons. I even have some little. I always keep them by my desk. This is Penhaligons. I have
Oh,
Paco Rabanne for reference. Is this one the like the robot?
nice.
Um, Yeah, so I did all of the fragrance marketing in the airports. So, I I feel like CIEE kind of has this like love for travel, and that was instilled in me as well, and kind of going out and seeing the world. And it was interesting that my first full-time corporate role after joining and being a part of the program was in the airports. Like I'm remaining international. So I would do like the digital screens in all the airports. We would run paid ads, so paid ads, influencer campaigns, anything in the marketing space for those brands. And that was a really cool experience. I did that, and I was based again in Miami for a year and 8 months. And then doing, my marketing promo here. Then I joined a startup, a jewelry startup. So we actually do, we have like a mobile charm bar. So we do like charm bracelets, charm necklaces, and we do them for weddings, birthdays. We have a store now too, so I help run that store. But it's all just like interactive, super fun, and that's kind of where I am now. Um, yeah, I don't know if that if you want me to elaborate on anything
Yeah,
or
no, that's great. I think it's really interesting to hear like the thought process and then of course like the timeline of how everything went down for you from coming from teaching abroad and then going into a master's program and then how that looks on your resume afterwards as well.
yeah,
And also like geographically that's pretty cool that they then got you to go to Miami
yeah,
and you were able to live there for a little while. Now you're back up in northern United
back
States
in the
again,
cold.
back in the
You
cold.
could say it. You
I
could say
know.
it.
Oh, you know,
Adam, what don't you do? I feel
Yeah.
like your resume is like
That's a good question. So side note, this is so random. This year I want to take up like sewing because I want to learn how to. I want to become like in another world. I want to become a tailor and like make design suits. So that's
yeah,
my new. That's gonna be my new hobby, my new stick this year.
nice. Good luck.
that is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, so I really find it fascinating, like the transition from teaching abroad to then being a student and especially at a Spanish university, like you're in
Yeah.
Spain. My first question is, was your master's program in English, Spanish, or was it bilingual? And how, like, tell us more about
Yeah.
that.
So I did do, because IE is an international business school and like they claim, that the international business language is English. Most of their programs are in English. They do have some programs that you can do bilingual or in Spanish, but they push the English programs. Um, I did do my master's in English, and being in the classroom setting, you're with people from IE has a very like Latino base, Spanish base. Um, Most of the time with my counterparts, I was friends with a lot of the Spanish speakers. So although I was taking my courses in English, I did get to fine tune my Spanish skills with my friends. And outside the classroom, we were speaking Spanglish, just like the universal English mix of Spanish. It was good.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, being in the classroom setting, and then something I do want to highlight too is at IE, like CIEE, it's very international. You do meet a lot of people from different backgrounds, so from Australia, from Asia, um, from the Middle East, from South America. So it is a really cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. When did your experience, like as you were applying, did your experience with teaching abroad, of course, in addition to the experience you had before you came to Spain with CIE, but do you think that gave you an edge in landing a position in the master's program?
Definitely. Definitely. So when I did my interview for the application process, I they really value people who are willing to take like risk and do something big with their lives.
Mhm.
So for them to hear like, hey, I moved across the ocean to try something new, to try teaching, and I put myself out there, and I told them all the skills, the hard and soft skills that I learned through teaching, like getting up in front of a classroom and presenting, and again turning on and being energetic, and lesson planning, and learning how to organize my time efficiently so that I could be as effective and great in the classroom, but also utilize my time that I got to be in Spain to again be a part of volleyball teams and really create these relationships and build community. Um, they enjoyed, they did like that, and they saw me as like a good candidate. And I think, I do think a lot of that to my experience teaching abroad and really helping me build my own confidence. I think going into teaching, I was nervous to get in front of the classroom, and now for me, it's something that's almost second nature. It's talking in front of people. Um, so yeah, it definitely played a big role in my position, landing in the IE Business School program. And I think it's something that I use every day, to be honest. Like, your communication skills become better. So I think my CIE program for that, and I think, again, I see it in everyday occurrences that I can. Um, yeah, I think the program for it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times it's hard to see like the connection of the skills that you develop as a teacher and how that relates to skills that are like vital for
Yeah,
other uh like other fields really.
yeah,
I also, I mean, you know this, Adam, but I also did a master's program in Spain. My program was bilingual. It was in advertising communication. And I feel
wow,
like like the main thing that transferred over, especially for like a marketing heavy type of position and
yeah,
advertising in general, is the ability to present. Like there's
yes,
nothing like presenting in front of like
absolutely.
angsty teens for 2 years. Okay. And then
Yeah,
like getting up in front of your like master's class of
yep,
people who are like taking it very seriously, paying attention. It was like a refreshing change
yes.
almost. But yeah, presenting was so normal because it's something
Hmm.
that we do every day as
Every day.
teachers.
Yep.
And it's really, really valuable and transferable to then going into a master's program
Yeah,
in
definitely.
that career shift. So yeah,
Mhm.
the confidence that you get from teaching
Is
is
unmatched.
unmatched
Yes,
for
kids
sure.
kids can be brutal too, in the
Yes.
best way possible. They keep you grounded.
Yeah, when you learn to like be interesting, essentially, like,
Yeah,
like weed out the stuff that's not important, leave in the things that are going to be important. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people, come up with like a presentation and they're reading off the slides. I feel like you can't do that as a teacher. They're just gonna write you off. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like they're not gonna, so you're developing those skills over time. And I think kids are very forgiving in that, you're working and building a relationship over the course of a year or 2 years in the case of Adam. And so that's really great to be able to then
yeah.
like take that and run with it in your career. So that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, anything else to share? Like any advice on, well, actually, I have two things. One
Yeah.
thing I was going to ask you about, like what comes next. So like you've done the master's program, you were working in marketing in Miami, and now you're back in New Jersey, in New
Mhm.
York. What's the vision for the rest of your career? Which I know is kind of a
Yeah.
question, but what's your
No,
vision
I love
next
it.
10
I
years?
love the pressure. I love the pressure.
Yeah.
Um, so a theory that I love to live by is called the yes man theory. So it's about just saying yes to new opportunity, even when it maybe doesn't seem like it makes the most sense for you, or there's never like a perfect time. I saw a quote the other day that I really love to live by too. That's like, being ready isn't a feeling; it's a decision. So again, so for me, something that is, that I'm looking forward to is next month. I plan on moving into either Manhattan or Brooklyn, and saying yes to new opportunities there. I'm actually joining a new volleyball team there. It always comes back to volleyball, um, and um, and I'm looking for new full-time roles, just because I am going to be still working on the passion project that the jewelry company. We have a store, but I'm looking for full-time roles in marketing. I want to continue building my curriculum and my resume in different areas under the marketing umbrella, because in the future, and thanks to CIEE again, like for me, CIE plays such a big chapter in my storybook. Um, because, thanks to the program, it made me realize so much about myself and things that I'm good at, and what I want for my future. And in the future, I do plan to become a professor. So using all the skills that I learned every day, teaching, being with students, how people learn, um, what, like, giving good advice and good feedback, and being a critic when you need to. All of these things are going to help me become a better professor in the future for my students, and for, even as like a staff member. So yeah, I look forward to building marketing resume and hopefully becoming a kick-ass professor.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's exciting. Do you plan to go back to teach at IE?
I do. So my number one choice is to teach at IE. They bring industry professors from, and even CIEE. I know you guys sometimes need professors, so maybe
Sure.
if it's the right timing, I'll head back to CIE. Um, CIE will always be home. So
Yes.
IE does bring in industry professionals, so you have to have a certain amount of years of experience. And a lot of my professors were full time. They have full time roles, and then they teach as like adjunct on the side. And they were phenomenal, and I kind of want to fill into their shoes. I still keep in touch, and I have really good relationships with them to this date. They opened a campus here in New York City, so I'm actually going to be like helping them with their like marketing and communications department. Um, I still am, pretty young in the industry, so I think within a few years I could see myself, working into a role there, and then hopefully being between the Madrid and New York City campus.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so cool. I didn't know that they opened an office in New York.
They
That's a
uh,
big deal.
they opened they opened a university actually. It's in Soho.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. Big
Yeah,
expansion. Because they were just in Madrid, right? They were
yeah.
only
They
had.
were in Madrid, in the city center, and in Segovia. And then there was a
Mhm.
college, I forget what the university was named, and they took over that university and now like rebranded it, and they're implementing their own programs. So hopefully, in the future we can see how we can work together, get some CIE and IE like programs going.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know.
Yeah.
I mean, people ask about the master's programs all the time. I try to give my 2 cents on, things that I've learned from applying, especially
Yeah.
like applying while you're teaching abroad and kind of extending from there. But I guess like related to that specifically, if people are looking to go to grad school, what is your biggest piece of advice or tidbits of advice that you have for folks that are wanting to go to grad school in Spain or in Europe after having taught abroad?
Yeah, definitely. My biggest piece of advice is to like, especially if you're watching this now, even if you don't know that you want to do a master's program, just start researching it. Just prepare yourself as much as possible. A lot of these schools are rolling admission, so you can apply last minute if you have to. But if you
Mhm.
can avoid that and you can apply for scholarships and kind of relieve yourself from the bureaucracy of like these European nations, um, the processes are not always the simplest. So if you can kind of start ahead of time, you will thank yourself. You will thank yourself for it, and definitely explore the different programs. It just like maybe sometimes teaching abroad felt out of touch for you and like too far of a goal, and now you're probably on your way there, or planning to go next year. I wouldn't say like I wouldn't opt out. No, omit. Like yeah, I wouldn't omit getting a master's abroad quite yet. Definitely do your research. It can be very affordable. It can be very accessible. So yeah, just do your research and you'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're teaching in Spain, like if you're planning on going and being in Spain teaching, a lot of schools will have like in-person like chats about the program and you get maybe to meet some of the professors. I know I went to one at the University of Alcalá for the Instituto Franklin, which is something that is still
Wow.
going on today. It's
Yeah.
for masters in international education specifically.
Awesome. Yeah.
But that was really, really helpful because they talked a lot, pretty much a lot in detail about like what the
Yeah.
program was going to be about and like the expectations and the time commitments and
Really
things like
cool.
that. And the cost, which is always really important.
Yes.
So yeah, if you get the head start on that, I mean, for teaching abroad, I always say you got to be preparing like 6 to 12 months in advance. And so for a
Definitely.
master's and international master's would also be, in the similar
Absolutely.
time zone. So
And as you like apply to these programs, just like CIEE, they really hold your hand and walk you through it. They make it very easy. So as long as you're just like communicative with CIEE, they'll really help you through the process, and it's it won't be too much of a headache.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and keep your diploma on hand. That's
Yes.
a big one for me too. Keep your bachelor's degree on hand. You might need that
Yes.
for
Save a good
placement.
copy.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Cool. Well, so the last question that I
Yeah.
ask everybody is just like your general piece of advice for folks that are considering teaching abroad and in that like should I do it phase? Like what do you
Yeah.
say to them?
Wow. So I'm like the biggest CIE advocate. So I think I've told everyone in my circle, I tell strangers about it. I'm like, you should do this program. It's life changing. If you're sitting next to me on the subway, I've told you about CIE and Teach Abroad. Um, Essentially, my advice is it's twofold. So again, kind of like what I went back on my what I was saying prior. Being ready is not a feeling; it's a decision. So don't wait around for that feeling to be like, oh, I'm ready to go abroad. I'm ready to start a new fitness journey. I'm ready to anything. You just have to decide to do it, and then suddenly you'll be ready. And then my advice is my second piece of advice is that you're going to work in your professional career for the rest of your life, whether that's 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? Taking a 6 month gap that's going to be so enriching, that's going to be you fostering new relationships, you learning more about yourselves, you learning a new language, you putting yourself in a situation that you've never been in before. There's only benefits that come from that. So if you are feeling like stuck in life, or if you are feeling like you don't know what's next in life, I think the Teach Abroad programs are a great fit because they kind of help you figure that out. And even though the answers aren't told to you up front in writing, as you go through that experience, you'll realize every day, like, oh wow, like I am learning a lot. I'm gaining confidence. I'm learning how to manage my time efficiently. I'm traveling and I'm meeting new people and I'm learning different perspectives. And then you go back and you apply that to your life, and things that seemed so far away and scary in the past, you kind of apply a new lens to it and you're like, I can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's great advice. I love that philosophy of it's not a feeling, it's a decision.
Mhm.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And CIE is there to help you
Yes.
get that feeling going.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah, that's very powerful advice. Well, I really thank you, Adam, for joining us today. I appreciate all the advice that you have. If you want to plug your charm company, I can put that in the YouTube notes.
Yes,
Are
wonderful. True
interested.
ascend. True ascend.
Yes. I can put the at in the
Okay.
YouTube notes for folks because I think that's pretty cool.
Wonderful.
Um,
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, girls. I really
yeah.
appreciate you guys having me today. Again, CIE is a great place to be, and they'll help you with anything you need. So you guys are in good hands.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll catch you guys tomorrow in the next interview, but thanks, Adam, and we'll see you
Awesome.
later.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.